multicultural headquarters of the future capital of the free-thinking states of America known as Los Angeles, this is the Drunken Taoist Podcast. Tonight, restoration ecologist Taylor Parker gives us the lowdown on his company's mission to restore wetlands, save endangered species, fight the slobber of the city, all while trying to get folks to actually give a shit. Plus, life, the universe, boxing lessons, and everything in between. And now, quietly awaiting my one-way ticket to Guantanamo, I'm Rich Evers. And my partner in crime, answering hopelessness with a defiant smile and a raised middle finger, Daniel Bolelli. Away we go.
Holy smokes, episode 11, just like that. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniele Bolelli!
Here we are. Just finished the conversation. Now, this has been on my mind for the last hour as we were talking. At some point, in completely random fashion, I mentioned a raccoon. And the damn raccoon has been on my mind for the last hour, because the other night, right in front of my house, I see these two shadows moving. I look out, and I kid you not, they're like 12 feet tall for like 250 pounds. They are actually raccoons. And one stand up, look inside my house, right glued to the glass door of it all. It was a weird moment, man. Like strange. Yeah, I wasn't high. They weren't like two robbers named whatever, but no, they were actually raccoons. It was really cool.
Well, that's what you get when they had a steady diet of garbage from McDonald's. The combination of all the hormones and all the preservatives, you get 17-foot tall raccoons.
Yeah, either that's the one chance, the atomic waste consumed that makes them humongous, or the fact that they, once they left my door, I took a peek and I went into the garden and I went to this area where I left my weights, and they just laid there on the bench press and started doing weights, and then they were shooting steroids after that.
That'll do it too.
That also may have something to do with it.
It's funny. A lot of people, I guess, don't realize, but LA's so spread out, and it's all kind of communities. The critters are all still here. The deer are here. I never forget driving through the Hollywood Hills when this deer took like an 8-foot leap off a cliff in front of my car, like out of nowhere. My favorite story, though, is I work for a German group on occasion that does a lot of stuff, and they'll bring in these kids from all over the country to do basically like a youth hostel / internship program. And I think these kids were from Austria or something. And I was editing something, and I hear shrieks from the backyard. Aye! So I kind of run out and see what's going on. And they're like, I think it's a chupacabra! Because they had no idea what they were saying. I was like, there's no fucking chupacabra. What are you talking about? And it was an opossum.
Right.
But with those gnarly teeth and being from Austria, where I guess the opossum population isn't quite what it is here, man, they were freaked out. Because that thing was like...
Yeah, they're freaking.
And then the baby parade came behind them. I was like, y'all got to calm down.
Yeah.
You're going to live here. You're going to have to be able to take more than a damn possum, believe me.
Yeah, man, it's a trip because LA, you think, urban and it is. And at the same time, where I live, there's quite often I hear the coyotes yelping,
God.
Like literally under my window where they've just slaughtered something. They're having a feast and all of that. So it's just...
Now, speaking of coyotes, because you have a definite concern now, what's up with Conan? Is he still with us?
No, Conan decided the damn dog, we found the owner, basically. So it's a happy story, reunited with his family, but I don't have now anymore a dog named Conan. That sucks. And so screw the owner. Who cares about the owner? Really, what about my feelings?
What kind of owner just lets their dog loose like this?
I know.
They're obviously, I don't know. I guess you did the right thing.
And since we're on a complete random tangent, let me go on one more, and then we have a regular introduction.
We'll have to introduce somebody.
Speaking of coyotes and raccoons, I just have this memory of being in Yosemite years and years ago. Night, there's nobody around, right? Everybody's either in their tent or in their cabin or whatever, and there's the moon is high, you can see everything, but there's no one human being who's moving in the valley at night. I'm walking around, and it's awesome, right? I have it all to myself. And I'm trailing this group of raccoons. There are actually quite a few. There are like 7 or 8 who are like trailing around looking for trash. They don't really mind me as long as I stay like 20, 30 feet away. I'm allowed to trail along and they are fine. And they are doing the funniest thing. They are like looking for food and then they fight each other a little and then a couple of raccoons start having sex in a corner and then so there's all this wild raccoon activity going on, and all of a sudden I see this one coyote who's like stalking them, right? And is like aiming for them. And you can clearly see the coyotes going like, dinner, 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 it's my dinner. And he start coming up close, and the raccoons realize it. All of them just start going, and they get really pissed. The coyote gets scared shitless. He's like, take off running like crazy, because he's like, hey, I just wanted a bite. What the fuck? Why are you guys so mad?
There's 7 of you guys.
Yeah, but it was hilarious to see them. They got so mad and scared the hell out of the coyotes. I had a blast. My night with the raccoons was fun. In any case, on that note...
Yeah, speaking of nature...
Yeah. Yeah. Today we're going to have a very intense conversation in regard to environmental issues, in regard to life, the universe, how punching people in the face help you become a better environmentalist, and things like that. Taylor Parker here with us. Well, you guys are going to hear it. I'm not even going to go too long into it right now.
Because it's a great conversation. It's Chris Ryan level, everybody. It's fascinating and fun.
A lot of fun. A couple of things I want to mention. One, well, speaking of environmental things, a word to our sponsor, that's Sarah. This one thing... Among the many, many, many reasons why I dig their stuff, beside the fact that they make awesome bags, beside the fact that, the Chinese hemp army we discussed last time, beside, many other reasons, there's the environmental factor of it. The fact that all their products are made of hemp. Hemp is one of the most sustainable, environmentally friendly crops out there. When you compare it to cotton, give me a break. Cotton is like more often than not grown in really nasty fashion that have a negative environmental impact. Not so with hemp, so that's yet one more reason why I dig their stuff. And if you guys are in the market for computer bags, backpacks, he just gave me shirts. They made some t-shirts that are really cool. Any of the above made of hemp, that's the way to go. If nothing else, you're saving the environment.
But not in the United States, because hemp is illegal.
Yeah, that's the hilarious thing. You can own these things because somebody else in another part of the world grows hemp and they make the product and you can import the product, but you can't cultivate it in the US. It's like...
It'd be a shame if we could get some farmers some jobs.
Yeah, I know. Totally demented.
Anyway,
but,
let's not go down that trail.
Yeah. Woo. Oh, and in regard to that, Cesara, if you guys order, I forgot last time, sorry about that. If you use in your order form, if you use the code, just my name, Daniele, which would be your stimulus for actually learning how to spell it, which is Daniel with an E at the end, all lowercase, you got a discount. So make sure you do that if you're ordering something from their site. And we'll put their site in the episode notes on our website, so feel free to link from there. Speaking of sponsors, also Sure Design t-shirts. As we mentioned before, he hooked us up with our shirts, with the Drunken Taoist t-shirts, and he also, his own stuff is just amazing. I really have been wearing a couple of shirts he sent me to the point where people downwind started saying, hey man, go take a shower, change the shirts, because come on, but I really like them so much, I never wanted to get rid of them.
My only fear is I'm hoping Gandhi's getting his cut, because
they
I do like that design.
Yeah, there's one with Hendrix that's awesome too.
Did you get the octopus?
No, I got an Hendrix one. I got one with Ganesh, the Hindu god with the elephant head. I got a couple of those. But and that too, if you guys order some of the Sure Design t-shirts, use the code WARRIOR and you get 10% off. So that's another thing. Speaking of t-shirts, our own shirt, the Drunken Taoist. So we're done with pre-orders because now we got them. We shipped most of them. There are a few guys who I haven't gotten around yet, but they are probably coming by the time this episode release. They are either arriving in the mail or getting close. If you haven't received anything, I would say by mid-March, definitely shoot me an email, because by then they have all gone out. So if you haven't received it and you ordered it, email me and we'll check to see what's going on. If you are planning to order one now that the pre-orders are done, basically what you need to do is just shoot me an email, either through the contact form at the Drunken Taoist or just to me straight, BODHI1974 at yahoo.com. and tell me what color you want, whether the red or the gray, what size, and where you live. That way I can get a vague sense of shipping costs, because man, that was a bad surprise. Those of you guys who don't live in the United States, Jesus Christ, that costs a lot.
It's not $4?
No, it's not. God damn it. Even Canada was like $9. Not to mention Japan or Portugal or something. I was like, yeah, so not happy with that. But
speaking of shipping, guess what I got in the mail today?
What?
I got my copy of Undefeated. Have you ever seen that? It was last year's Academy Award winner for Best Documentary, and I've been waiting for months for this thing. Not only did I go see it in the theater twice, which is beyond, well, I saw it and then I had to bring my wife to see it too. I cried 3 times. Now, that's ridiculous, and I was worried about that, but then I found out that P. Diddy also cried 3 times, so I didn't feel I had lost my masculinity. But I ordered it through Amazon, and now it arrived.
That's beautiful. Did you use our link?
Absolutely.
You're the man. So you guys do the same. If you ordering anything on Amazon, please use our link, and we'll love you for it.
And check out Undefeated. I don't want to give anything away. It's the dregs of Memphis high school football that finally get their moment, and the story of the coach that if we had a few more coaches like that, and this would be the most incredible place in the world to live. So
that's a good speech, except that your PDD reference by now just degraded you to, we can't take anything you'll ever say seriously again.
I didn't think anybody was in the first place. So.
Cool.
That makes me feel like some chocolate.
Yeah, chocolate. Yes. We had the contest by now. When we're recording, we haven't picked the winner yet, but we will within the next few days. So by the time we record, anybody who entered, who sent us an email, will get an email back letting you know what's up. If nothing else, the website, by the way, for feelgreatchocolate.com will redirect you to Curacao, where you can place your order. And there as well, you can use a code, I believe is my name. I'll try to find out and put it in the episode notes. I think is my name, that you can get a discount for any chocolate you order. And amount, not that chocolate needs any reasons for ordering, because it's damn chocolate. You need to get it because that's it. But beside the fact that it tastes freakishly good, that it's curiously healthy, and I mean, that's bizarre considering we're speaking of chocolate, but the way these guys do it, they are health freaks and chocolate fanatics, so that's a good combo. And last but not least, not to sound sexist, but is your self-defense against PMS, whether you are a woman and you're dealing with that, big plus, or whether you're somebody who's dealing with somebody with PMS.
Wear it like a shield.
In either case, yes, throw chocolate at the beast and everything will work out better.
Now, we got some of the the coconut, sort of Almond Joy-esque ones.
Oh, man, I tried one with coconut the other day. That was I think they called it Blondie Bar.
I think that's it.
Jesus. Oh my God. I don't even like coconut that much, but when, I like, man, it was amazing. It was really.
Because they also do the high end, like 87%. That's almost a little too much for me. Do you like that?
Which one?
When it's just like 87% coca, that it's like, wow. I need mine mixed down a little bit.
Yeah, no, I dig. I shoot it straight in vein, so I need 125%.
It's the beautiful part about the world. A little something for everybody.
Right.
What did we forget? Do we have donation?
Yeah, I'm going to mention... Oh, yeah, might as well mention it now. So, donations... okay, sorry, guys.
Let the botchering begin.
Yeah. I think I can manage a Ryan Peterson, which, by the way, runs a blog called slowcarbchef.com. So, again, slowcarbchef.com. Check it out. Vincent Arrogancia, oh my God, this Cynthia as a curious last name is spelled Kacian, and as she put it, is spelled as in syndication, so it's like Cynthia Cation or something like that. And the evil woman wanted to call her daughter Forna, which would make first and last name Fornication, which would have been really evil, but luckily she had better thoughts and decided not to do that to her poor daughter.
That's pretty rough. I grew up with a guy whose name was Peter Jeter. I mean, what could be crueler than that?
That's messed up.
I think, rhyme freaks, come on.
Really wrong. Travis Marsot, Jay Pomerville, David Lloyd, Stephen Flora. I think I can manage some more without butchering them. Let's try. No, maybe not. Aaron Burcham, something like that. Beth Riderford, Troy Holm, Jason Mandala, Richard Depuy, that I don't know. I took a guess. Sorry, Richard. and Donald Cunningham. I almost made it. I think I
pretty
only
good.
screwed up like 2 or 3. That's great. And yeah, you guys donated to the podcast. Thank you so much for doing that. And if you listening feel like doing the same, we never, ever, ever will reject your money. Trust us. So we don't reject if you just listen. That's sweet anyway. If you listen and send us your money, that's also sweet. If you turn other people on to listening, there are lots of ways to be sweet. Employ them. Oh, speaking of which, one sentence that I used this week in the course of lecture that I don't think any human being has ever used. I was explaining how in the beginning of World War II, France and England didn't really want to get into the war with Germany, didn't feel like it. So when Hitler started invading Czechoslovakia, he invaded the first part, and they were like, oh God, we are supposed to stop him, but we don't really want to do it and stuff. So I was explaining to my students their rationale, and I said how France and England address Hitler saying, come on, Hitler, just be a sweetie and stop invading right now, would you? And I was thinking, come on, Hitler, be a sweetie. I think it's a first in human history. I don't think too many people have used that so far, but in any case.
I think you and Mel Brooks may be the only ones.
Yeah, could be.
But Hitler just responded, I'm just going to put the tip in. So.
And last thing, so we can get rolling. Daisy House Music.
Yes.
They released their album, the whole thing. So I'll put the link where you can order not just the one song that we use for our intro, but also all their other stuff. It's on. So check them out. And last but not least, Paul Clawiter. If you guys recall, Paul Clawiter done an animation for a story that I had done about tigers and strawberry on Duncan Trussell podcast.
Yes, this was awesome.
He's done a new one about, I think it was either the second episode or something like that, when I told the story of Gonzalo Guerrero. He did this really long, like 5+ minute animation. It's beautifully done. We'll put a link in the episode notes. Check it out on YouTube. And while you're checking stuff out on YouTube, if you want to check out a teaser that we had done before we ever released the first episode of the Drunken Taoist, we did this video where there's my best Godfather impersonation, where Rich is doing his own super intro. It's fun. It's only like a minute long or something, so if you guys want to check it out, that was fun. We'll put the links to all that.
I'm awfully happy you're here because I figured you might be in fear of my almost Nostradamuc level of predicting the meteor strike in Russia.
Oh, yes.
The last podcast.
Please rub our nose into it.
Well, I'll be making more predictions shortly, so everyone be ready. The February 15th hit perfectly. Nobody actually hit in the head, but 1,500 people with broken windows. Watch out, folks. The meteors are coming.
So if you guys you need psychic readings, Rich will be
I'll be happy to see if I can see something in my crystal ball.
Yeah.
I think it's time.
Away we go. Okay, guys, this time I have my math in order, so I didn't say math. I'm not consuming crystal meth yet. Math, as in adding numbers and all of that stuff. And we are on episode 11 of the Drunken Taoist podcast. Here with us today, Taylor Parker. Taylor, thank you so much for coming here.
My pleasure.
And we are going to be chatting about life, the universe, everything, all that good stuff. But so let's start out with the basics. Just who the hell are you? What are you doing? I kind of know the answer, but, let's just play with the reason why part of this conversation will happen is you have clearly a driving passion for certain topics that I find myself also very much passionate about. I'd love to hear your take on it.
I'm a restoration ecologist. Mm-hmm. I have a restoration ecology company, mm-hmm. and our entire focus is to save wetlands, save endangered species, and teach our community, specifically local school children, about it. That's what I do.
How does it work? Like you pick up a contract with, who gives you contracts?
Yeah, great question. I work primarily with nonprofits and local municipalities. So mm-hmm. primarily I work in Long Beach, East Long Beach specifically. I work on 2 of the most amazing restoration projects in California. I've got a project, the Colorado Lagoon, It's a $12 million restoration project. It's easily going to be over $25 million when it's finished. We're working on that. The whole purpose is to save wetlands. I've got another project, it's Los Cerritos Wetlands. It's in North Orange County and Long Beach also. And again, save wetlands, restore wetlands for the home for the wetland creatures, specifically the endangered species that live there. How
does the process work? I mean, I'm not, asking you a total blow by blow, like, and then I add some mud to this pot and then we put, but exactly.
You'd have to kick me out at that
point. Right. At least just to get a vague picture of what exactly entails.
Yeah. So a public agency or a nonprofit has a habitat that is degraded. They bring in somebody like my company to figure out how it's degraded. What kind of plants do we have on site? What kind of plants could we get on site? How bad is our water quality? How good is our water quality? What are the different kinds of things that we can do for that? I bring the environmental scientists that work for me, my business partner also, he's an environmental scientist, and he goes out and we figure that out. We do an assessment, and then we write up a plan, or we work with the different partners that we have, and we try to figure it out and fix it.
How does it reach the point where someone realizes they have a problem? I mean, it sounds like, especially in our society, people are like, fuck it, ruined is ruined.
Yeah.
And between invasive species and the million other problems that we have, it's amazing that anybody at all would be willing to say, hey, let's spend $50 million fixing this.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
I think you work in miracles.
Well, thank you. On the good days, I feel that we're working miracles too. On most days, on the bad days, it's, oh my God, I get so overwhelmed by everything that's going on.
I was familiar with some groups that did some restoration of the Colorado River, which was amazing stuff. I mean, looks pristine when it's done. But those folks wanted a great place to fish. Is there always something that somebody has to gain? My property value would be better if we were not sitting on a sewer.
We call those beneficial uses. So there's multiple beneficial uses. Personally, my personal ethic is I'm more concerned with the beneficial uses for the environment, but it doesn't mean that I can ignore the beneficial uses for fishing, for recreation, for boating. I can't ignore that. If I do, then I'm dead as an environmental scientist.
Of course, because if there's no money somewhere at some point, nobody's going to invest in it. Right.
Exactly. So one of my projects, the Colorado Lagoon, this is a multi-agency project. It's led by the city of Long Beach. I work for the nonprofit, the Friends of Colorado Lagoon, great advocacy group that started and as little rebels, but then they started going forward and being progressive with their action. The reason they got started, and there's multiple reasons, but one of the main reasons is our little 18-acre wetland had the third worst water quality in the state of California.
Wow.
I mean, it's bad.
Right.
The E. coli that was going in there, the stuff, I mean, it was making people sick.
I mean, if you got that bad, you might as well shoot for number one, because it's embarrassing to be number 3 worst water quality. It's like, come on, shoot for the top.
Right. We had 2 choices to go. Either go worse or go better.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just embarrassing.
Exactly.
Was it raw sewage? Was it...
Sewage? Well, actually, there's a couple things. One is it's an 11-acre water body. Before we started our restoration in 2009, we had 11 storm drains dropping into an 11-acre water body, completely unmitigated, completely unfiltered, just going right in from a fairly large watershed of the city.
Yike.
And then we call it the urban slobber. The slobber coming down from the city. I mean, that's everything. It's the dog feces that wasn't picked up. It's the motor oil. It's the everything coming right into this habitat.
Dead raccoons and the whole deal, right?
Over-fertilized lawns.
Exactly. It's all that stuff. And so there's 2 main problems that causes. Stuff in the water column, everything from the top of the ocean floor to the top of the end of the water, everything in that water column, and then everything within the marine sediment. So the water column is everything that the humans interact with. We swim in that water column when you go to the beach and you surf in there or whatever, and that's where the E. coli is. That stuff gets in your mouth, that gets in your eyes, it gets in your ears, makes you sick. If you're already sick, or if you're a kid, or if you're an older person, you're done.
Ew, gross.
Yeah, bad stuff. Exactly.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. So that was a huge issue. But more importantly, for the humans, but then also for the ecosystem, is the stuff that we don't deal with every day, that doesn't make you sick. The heavy metals, the lead, the mercury, the cadmium.
As in Metallica kind of thing? Or
Yeah, exactly.
Different kind of heavy metal.
Those heavy metals, yeah, they're yeah. Anyway, those are coming down the storm drains also. They're also coming with a bunch of poisons, the DDTs, the PCBs, the PAHs, all these synthetic things. And those go down the storm drains and they get into the sediment. And those are the things that cause the cancers. Those are the things that cause the physiological changes in the animals. And we had a really bad spot. So before our restoration, bad sediment, bad water quality, and that impacted the habitat. So then our habitat is lower quality. And so those are some of the things we had to fix. And we're almost, we're about halfway done, and we've addressed those two major issues. We put filters on the storm drains. We directed some of the storm drains to the sewer system where they actually get treated before they go directly into the ocean. We put bioswales, which are basically ditches with plants that come out and they filter the water. And then this last starting a year ago, February 2012 to August 2012, we removed 63,000 cubic yards of contaminated sediment. And it's just poison. 63,000 cubic yards is a large amount of sediment.
What do you do with that?
There's a couple things you do.
Put it in Utah.
Yeah, that's one of them. That's one of the things you do. You take it to a site that is a contaminated site.
Or you have a contract with McDonald's and it goes straight into the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly right. No comment on that one.
39 cents Big Mac with a couple of additives.
Save you some money.
Yeah.
That's one of the things you do. You take it to a contaminated site and you bury it. The other thing you do is you take it to another contaminated site and you burn it. You incinerate the whole thing. Those are really expensive. To be able to find a site that can take it to transport all that material to another site is really expensive. So one of the things we had to do as practical, pragmatic, environmental people, so we had to start making partnerships. And so the city of Long Beach made a partnership with the Port of Long Beach. And the Port of Long Beach wants to expand their Middle Harbor project because that's what they're doing. And so to do that, they need fill. They need material. They ended up taking our contaminated sediment, mixing it with a cement slurry, and then that is what is part of their Middle Harbor project. And that cement slurry keeps our poison, keeps all our contamination in that cement for the next 2,500 years. Wow. And it doesn't degrade into the environment.
Well, you know, they do have all those additional containers because we ain't got jack shit to ship back for the rest of the world. So why don't we just fill those up and ship it back to China? They can mix it with their new coal-powered plants.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, while you're talking about this, one thing that... Well, two things, actually. Have you ever seen the studies where if you put sunflowers into the contaminated oil or contaminated earth, that they will remove a lot of the heavy metals? Now, the problem is then you have to destroy the contaminated sunflowers.
Not necessarily. But yes.
So you've seen that?
Yeah, that's the idea behind the bioswales that we plant.
Okay, that's what made me think of it.
It's called phytoremediation. So you plant the plants in a certain area, and they then uptake it. It doesn't necessarily get rid of it, but it does move it. And so what it does is it moves it from a water body specifically.
Right.
So then it gets it out of there. So if the water is moving, it doesn't drop it into a larger water body and poison all the fish and poison all the animals.
And that's where all these kill zones come from that you hear about. Gulf of Mexico has them. Do we have them on our coast at all yet? Or is it something that just hasn't reared its head yet?
Yes and no. So there's the different kill zones where the ocean floor is just dead. That's one of the definitions of a kill zone. The other one is where the algal blooms,
right.
Those toxic algal blooms come out. So we've definitely experienced the algal blooms, and you'll see that on a hot July or August day. You'll see those algal blooms out off the coast. But the kill zones, I think they're just now starting to see those. I'm not a marine biologist, so I don't know exactly, but they're starting to pop up. Yeah. It's incredible. It's incredible science. It's an incredible study.
Well, at least you know you got a steady gig from now till 3037.
Job security, right?
Yeah. I mean, destruction is it's embarrassing.
It is. It is embarrassing. It's embarrassing as humans, the things that we've done. It's understandable.
Well, we're basically just evolved bacteria.
Yeah.
But we still behave just like bacteria. We consume till it's gone, shit everywhere, and just leave a dried husk of worthlessness.
Because on a historical perspective, we haven't had to think otherwise.
Oh, yeah. Who would ever think you could empty the ocean?
Right. Right,
Nobody
exactly.
thought. Now, have you ever seen these dredges?
Oh, yeah.
And they throw 70% of what they dredge up dead back into the water.
Yep.
But you've destroyed something that will not be replaced for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And just don't even think about it so somebody can have a fucking McBite, fish McBite.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly, and we haven't had to worry about it. And
we're worried now.
And so you can look at it in two different ways. One is, I think, the traditional environmentalist way, and I think which is why environmentalists get a really bad rap, is because the traditional way to look at it is doom and gloom and it's so horrible, the world is going to shit and all that.
So, I'm sorry, just to interrupt you there. You think that the bad rap that environmentalists get is primarily due to the sort of catastrophic, apocalyptic description where people just get bummed out and they feel like, shut up already, I don't want to hear it. Is that, you feel, the main thing? Or
I think that, and the fact that environmentalists, to group us all together,
right?
They are passionate, very passionate individuals, and that passion can be expressed in a lot of different ways. And so there, you get the literal tree huggers that attach themselves to a tree and allow the cops to put mace in their eyes. And that passion comes across to a lot of people as just this whack job, this nut job is out there, and so I'm not going to take him seriously because he's just crazy. So I think both of those. It's you talk about global climate change. Most people, they just shut down. They're like, what can I do? That's a horrible thing. It's too big. I can't impact it. I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me about that. And so you get labeled as that environmentalist.
Because, I mean, when you think about it, it's weird that even the concept of environmentalist, because it shouldn't even be a political issue or label. When you think about it, it's just basic common sense. You don't poison the water you drink. You don't poison the air you breathe. It's not even a liberal or conservative issue. It's not and it's just anybody who wants to stay alive, just basic survival instinct, doesn't fuck up the environment in which they live. Plain and simple.
That's it.
Why is it not so plain and simple? Because, I mean, when you look at it, the reality of it is so damn straightforward and self-evident that there shouldn't even be a discussion. It should be like, well, of course, that's what you need to do to make sure you don't screw up the very conditions that make your life possible.
Near-thinking primates.
Right.
Well, that's what we are. And I think that's the reason is we are conditioned over millions of years, over hundreds of thousands of years as a civilization to take care of the things that are around us, to be the best primates that we can be for our tribe, for our families, for our children. And we're really good at that. We are tremendous at that. We are better than any other species on the planet at that. And that's what we know how to do. We have it in our genes. We have it in every single cell in our bodies. And so when you start to talk about, larger things, things outside of yourself, things that are your home, your larger home that is home for other primates that you have never met and you're never going to meet, that's a difficult thing to get across. We don't have we have not evolved the cognitive capacities to think about that, which is a weird thought process.
So it's just kind of short-term thinking about mine and mine right now and screw what happens 50 yards away from me because it's not my territory.
That's the theoretical thing behind it, but then when you get down to the pragmatics and the dollars and cents, I mean, that's the big argument about anything environmental is, but you're going to put these regulations on me and you're going to stop me from manufacturing or you're going to stop me from doing this. That's going to cost me money. That's going to cost the consumer money. And that's the big argument. And I love and I hate that argument.
Right.
It's a great argument. It's a great argument because you get that tax and you see it. But then I hate that argument. I listened to Mary Nichols speak last week. She is the head of the Air Resource Board in California, one of the most powerful women that I've ever heard speak. And she expressed it so perfectly. She said, California is the 9th largest economy in the world and has been sustainably growing for decades, without question, just going forward, and we're just strong.
Right.
We also have precedent-setting environmental regulations, and we have since 1976 in the Coastal Act, when the Coastal Act was passed. And other countries, other governments come to us and they say, how do we engage with the environment? How do we set up environmental regulations? And she said, there's no distinction. There's no difference.
Right.
They're one and the same. We can allow our economy to grow. We can allow our environmental regulations to grow, and they're not different. And so she says, the reason we're growing is because we are bringing the best and the brightest to California. We have some of the industry leaders here in California. We have Silicon Valley. We have all the recreational companies, Quicksilver, Hurley, all of those in Orange County. We have the video game industry in Marina Del Rey.
Right.
You're bringing the most creative people, and they want to be around life. They want to be around bio. They want to, breathe clean air and be in that water and go surfing. And there's not a difference. You can grow both. And I love that.
There's something that I guess it's a second time during the course of the podcast at some point. I think in a very early episode I brought up Jared Diamond, who still, you bastard, have never replied to my email, so I don't like you so much. But just like the first time, I actually do like you because there's one of the points that he made on the exact issue that you bring up. Environmental issues, yeah, that would be nice, but it costs too much. Kind of pitting this economy versus environmental protection as two opposites fighting each other.
It's a false dichotomy.
Yeah, one of the things he says is that in the long run, you end up paying as a society much more, even just not in spiritual terms, in health terms, in dollar and cents, in strictly economic terms. He say you pay much more by not taking care of your environment than you do, because when you have to address some of the problems that come out of it, whether it is because of clear cutting of forest and soil erosion and mudslides and all the destruction that those creates, whether it is because of poisoning of the ocean, whether it is for a million different reasons, the point is once you start trying to fix those problems that you have to deal with as a society, it costs you way more money than how much money was made by not taking care of, by not, developing the economy in a sustainable way in the first place. The difference is the people who make the money in the first place, they tend to be one particular industry, at most their employees, that's about it. They make money. The much bigger cost that end up being paid down the road is paid by the entire society. So there's no incentive for a particular company to be green in that regard, because if they can make money and pass the cost to somebody else, works for them, right? So in that sense, that's where, but from a social standpoint, even from an economic standpoint, for the health of the whole country, it makes no sense, this economy versus environment dichotomy, because it doesn't work that way. You pay more. And
there's no end to it, is there? I mean, the profiteers are always long gone when the bill arrives.
But here's what's so exciting about the moment that we live in now, is that there are people who are very, very smart, very, very passionate, and actually have some pull that are changing those kinds of that false logic. There's some great examples up in Washington, the fisheries up in Washington. Global climate change is acidifying the ocean. And that's one of the things that's happening. It's being proven left and right. That's just what's happening. And one of the things that does is it is killing the oyster larvae up in Washington. So the oyster larvae don't have the ability to live within that specific pH, and so they're dying. Well, this hundreds of millions of dollar industry of oysters and that fishery is literally gone. It's just gone. And so they brought in all the scientists and they said, what are we doing? What's going on here? Why can't I grow oysters? I'm trying everything. And so the scientists went in, they figured out that it's the acidification of the ocean water that they're pulling in. The acidification is higher, I think, in the morning. And then just because of the way the ocean functions, and they said, bring your water in to your fisheries, to your hatcheries at nighttime, do a couple other things, and it saved that fishery.
Wow.
And so the fishery industry looked at that and they said, wow, this is a global climate issue. This is an environmental issue. And we just put some energies toward it. We put a few resources toward it, minuscule to the larger idea. And they saved that industry. They saved the jobs of the people that were working there. And they saved the people that own the large companies, the fat cats that we were talking about earlier. They saved them.
Right.
But just it was increasing your paradigm a little bit.
Yeah.
The cool part about that is they then took that case study and they're sharing it with the East Coast fisheries and said, you're going to experience this. You haven't yet, for different reasons, but you're going to. They're starting to share it with other fisheries around the world, and they said, look, you're going to experience this. Start paying attention. And the East Coast fisheries said, yeah, we're starting to see it. And so those kinds of things, those systematic changes are happening. I think there's a cultural shift that is starting to change.
Are those oyster farms, are they more farm-like, or are they more natural habitats that they just harvest?
Those particular ones, I don't know.
Okay.
It's called aquaculture. I've seen different kinds of aquaculture. The ones that I've seen around here are basically pier pilings that are out in the water, and so you allow the natural, systematic, oceanic process to occur,
right,
but it's just within one little area.
I don't know if you've ever, up in Morro Bay, used to be abalone heaven.
Yeah.
And they literally took them all.
Wiped it out?
And nothing, it was nothing, I don't think it was even ecological at that point. It was just, they took them all, and what do you know? No more eggs, no more abalone. And there are pictures from probably the 40s or the 50s where there are
mounds of the abalone shells.
And they went through it all, and they gobbled it all up, and now it's gone. And they still, to this day, are trying to reestablish that.
Yeah.
So maybe it's your next gig.
It's funny that you bring that up, man. Morro Bay is my source of inspiration. I go there.
I'm from.
No kidding.
Cambria is where
I love it, man. I get up there every year to go camping.
Yep.
And speaking of your source of inspiration, how did you get here? How do you go and say, I'm going to become, it's like...
He was skateboarding with Mike V one afternoon.
Right.
No, definitely wasn't doing that. It's kind of a weird, circuitous route. Mm-hmm. I originally went to school to be a lawyer. And not an environmental lawyer. I originally went to school to be a lawyer and
Give
FBI.
me my money, motherfuckers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I was in criminal justice at Cal State Long Beach, and I was studying that, and I was just listening to the stuff the teachers were pumping into my heads, and I couldn't relate, I couldn't understand it, I couldn't believe what they were saying, and I couldn't do it. And so I started university the September 11th, 2001.
That's funny, man. That was the very first semester I was teaching at Cal State Long Beach.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
Not in criminal justice, I hope.
No,
I'm just kidding.
And that, by the way, my theory for why things change for you while you were at Cal State Long Beach is basically you were downwind and you caught one of my brain waves. Indirectly brainwashing you. That's why you ended up here.
Where I was going was I was going to give you full credit, actually.
That's always the right thing to do. Doesn't matter what we're talking about, what the point is, that's always...
I like it.
I'm glad you're on the same wavelength.
All right, good. All right, I'll remember that. But yeah, so I was in those classes. I couldn't understand it. I didn't get it. And September 11th happens, and I'm just... it's shocking as a new university student. And then the way that the government started dealing with that issue, it just didn't make sense. There was this dissonance in my head.
You didn't think going shopping was the answer?
Yeah, no, when they came out with the Jeep Liberty ads, it just didn't make sense. And then when they started, we're going to go to war. Well, I mean, that didn't make sense to me. I was like, well, why are we going to go to war? And it just, I don't know. So I started wanting to protest the war. And I didn't know how.
Why do you hate America?
Yeah, why do you hate America? Well, I wanted to protest the war, and I didn't know how. And they had these peace rallies and these peace marches in Long Beach. And I went to a couple of them. And I saw that they were doing something. I saw that other people were taking notice. I saw that they were gathering more people. But it wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't effective. It wasn't there.
Let me take you on a tiny tangent, because otherwise that takes us far away and we lose track. So, quick question regarding the war, and we're talking still just Afghanistan war, right? Not Iraq.
Yeah, I don't even know. It just all blended in.
Right, because to me, it's like Iraq, I mean, it was such an obvious bullshit. The whole rationale, the explanation, the justification, all of it just made no sense. And it had nothing to do with Al-Qaeda, it had nothing to do with anything. Afghanistan, the reason why some people were much more willing to go the Afghan route than the Iraqi route was that having a government that was shielding Al-Qaeda and all of that, the assumption was if you guys are the ones who did the bombing and you have a government in Afghanistan that's protecting them, then you need to go to war to take them out and so on and so forth. Now, I'm clearly...
And that's why we attacked Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Oh, wait. I get confused. I'm sorry.
Right, but...
Continue. I'm sorry.
I guess, some people sometimes tend to it interests me when people tend to separate or they keep together. I'm kind of curious about that, but I just realized as I'm going into it that I'm totally taking you on a different tangent that will lead us far in a galaxy far away where we don't want to go. So no, sorry, I'll shut up. To take you back, part of what you were saying is that you felt that political activism that you were involved in wasn't delivering the results that you felt like it's not as effective as it could and should be.
Right.
What was the transition from there to going environmental?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I wasn't feeling effective. Mm-hmm. I wasn't feeling like my actions were producing anything worthwhile. So I looked at a couple other things. I looked at, I think I was reading books to sick kids or something, just something that I could feel like I was doing something worthwhile. And I came across this flyer or something to help out some environmental nonprofit. And I did, and spent my weekend down there, and I planted some plants, and I started watering plants, and I don't think I'd ever done that before. And I wasn't an environmentalist by any means at that point. I didn't even have, my thought process together in that realm. But I just knew, intuitively, I knew that what I was doing was a positive thing. I was putting plants in the ground. I was building more home for things that weren't me. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it was just, I felt it. Long story short, I just did that, and I became good at it, and I started learning all the plants, and I started learning the theories behind it. I started working for the nonprofit that I was volunteering for, and then I started managing some of the projects, and I just kind of grew in that organization over a period of a few years.
So this was completely outside of school?
Completely outside of school. And then at that point, I was working for a law office. I was working for a couple other jobs. And I had to pay my way through university. Sure. So there came a point where I made that decision. Well, this is actually really satisfying. And so I decided to start working for that nonprofit, and I quit working for the lawyers. I quit doing that. And I paid my way through school by doing environmental work.
Damn.
So, yeah.
That's impressive.
Do you ever take a moment to reflect what we might have been able to do with $3 trillion instead of buying helicopters and artillery shells? Yeah. How much repair would that... is there any way you can quantify that?
Yeah. Quantifying things in the environmental realm is it's a challenge.
It's got to be slippery.
There's metrics to do it, but there's challenges also. Where it comes completely home to me is I've got a contract right now for this plant. This plant only exists between Santa Barbara and Mexico, basically Tijuana. It only exists on the coast. It only exists in 9 places. If it dies in those 9 places, it does not exist on this planet anymore. And I have this contract with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, and they worked for 3 years within their government agency to get funding to put this plant in more places between Santa Barbara and Mexico. They fought for 3 years to get funding for it, and when they finally did, they got $20,000. And these are scientists. These are people that are well trained in this field, much more well trained than I am. They know this species. They know there are action plans on how to take species off the endangered species list. They know how to do it. And they got that $20,000, and I got that contract, and I'm working on it. And I'm looking at that, and then, you see this dichotomy, you see this difference, and you're like, that's what you got.
My suggestion would be start passing the news around that if you smoke or inhale or rub that plant onto your nose, you start seeing wild magic visions. And just by placebo effect, you're going to have about 20% of the people who try that something amazing will happen to them. Yeah. You'll have that plant growing in every garden in the universe. So
it's funny that you bring that up, because I was on that same... I'll give you credit again. I was thinking those same things. I was like, some of these endangered species, those animals, whatever, right. You maybe you make it have some quality that, humans value.
Yeah.
And there are case studies that actually works. But the thing that shut me down on that was peyote. Mm-hmm. Peyote is being considered for the endangered species list.
Right.
Because there's all these peyote heads that want to go out and they're pulling it out of the desert.
Yep.
And so it's not necessarily a bad thing to do that, but it's just got to be managed. You got to have that other part of your brain working.
Yeah. And that's the day Rich started his peyote farm.
Yeah.
20 years later.
Exactly.
Yeah, what's the problem with that? Is it hard to grow? Is that what it is?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Real specific.
It's
right?
a very small plant. God, I'm outing myself here. It's a very small plant. It takes a very, very long time to grow. It needs very specific conditions. It can't get too much water. It can't get too little water. And it just grows in a very specific area.
So putting it in your garden somewhere, good luck growing that. Because
you can. You definitely can. Right. You just need to know what you're doing.
Right.
With like most plants that you grow at home.
If you know how to nurse it properly, any plant will grow in it. Not that I know anything about that, but I read it somewhere on the internet. It's funny, everything you mentioned, I will forever dream of that moment where George Bush was standing on the rubble pile, telling us all to go fucking shopping. What if it was President Gore standing up there saying, today we cut our oil consumption by 30%. Mm-hmm. You want to do something, help out. Today, we start fixing things instead of breaking things.
It sucks because I'm so jaded and so cynical when the big politicians say anything, because it's a systematic thing. But with that said, some of the things that the big politicians can do, they have so much more power than you and I have. They have so much more power. And just even little decisions are so much more far-reaching than the things that we can do. And so, yes, I'm of the same mindset.
Well, it's just there's so many giant problems now.
Yeah.
Like the plastic gyres that are showing up. How do we fucking fix that?
I mean,
do we literally go out in canoes and start scooping up? I guess I read that the plastic becomes microscopic after a while, that it will break down. It won't biodegrade,
right,
but it'll become these shattered little tiny pieces. So there's really
the plastic,
really hope for that. Yeah. And I'll never forget down at the Scripps Aquarium, and this was 15 years ago, and who knows if it was a real number, but they had in their little school aquarium that they had a little plaque that says every day Southern California pumps 4 billion gallons of raw sewage into the ocean.
Yeah.
And I don't get the feeling that that's changed at all.
Yes and no. It hasn't on the large scale, and it's actually increased in some capacities in different ways.
Holy shit.
Well, more people are coming to Southern California.
Yeah.
This is the most amazing place to live.
That's true.
It is, and so more people are coming. But again, go back to those environmental regulations. You can have more people to a limit, to a certain degree. You can continue living somewhat of the first world lifestyle that we're living. You just got to change some things. You got to change your mindset. So some of the things that are being proposed and some of the things that are actually being implemented, they call them TMDLs, total maximum daily loads. And there are the State Water Board.
I've had a few of those.
I was like, I'm not gonna say anything.
Sorry.
Duncan Trussell is not here, so
yeah.
yeah.
That's.
Sorry about that.
more of a technical term. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. So there's these things, the regulations that they have, and what it does is these regulatory agencies put these on the different cities. So, for example, the river that runs through the wetlands I work on, the San Gabriel River, massive river. It has it's like a 32 mile river that goes from the San Gabriel Mountains to the ocean. It's got I think it's a 700 square mile watershed. It hits all kinds of cities, and it's massive. The TMDLs that are going on these different cities are requiring them to limit the amount of trash and the amount of waste going into this river, because that's what our best management practice is right now, is just dump it into the river, let the river dump it into the ocean. And so now what they're doing is they're recognizing that upstream you can start making some changes, put some filters on some storm drains, put some things on some things, and just change some things up. And you can make a major impact on the ocean. And when you're living in Azusa, you don't think about the ocean.
Right.
Because you're not seeing it.
Right.
So
I guess in a way, what you're saying is that the only way out, if there is a way out, is to try to figure out ways in which somebody you hear about environmentalist and start getting all like, disgusting, but starting to sell them not so much on a notion of, save the earth or have a good idea, like a philosophical change about interdependence of all things or anything. It's just kind of show them this benefits you in this way. That's maybe how you can change things, in just by appealing to people personal sort of egotistic self-interest, even in the short term rather than just long term or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the ways that I try to work to change the culture, especially where I live. Mm-hmm. That's one of the ways. There's a lot of different ways that we've tried, and I love talking about it because it's fun. You deal with people's egos. You deal with people's what they care about, the dollars and the cents. But then you also deal with, their kids. People care about their kids.
Right.
And you say, look, did you grow up catching snakes and lizards and all that?
Or rockfish?
Yeah, did you go fishing? Well, there are facts, the writing's on the wall. Your kids will not be able to do that. Not just because of the pollution, but because of the development. We're losing the places to do that.
There's without question one of my most terrifying, waking nightmares is that we will be the folks that were alive when the last tiger dies, when the last rhino dies. I mean, the amount of criminality behind that if we stand by, 7 billion of us, and don't do shit and just watch these amazing creatures go, that's on us forever.
But why? Why does it matter? And that's the thing. Why does it matter if another species dies? Does it change your life?
Yes.
How?
Not directly, but, and I'm with you. You've got to fight this all the time because I'm sure the majority of people, especially Orange County people in their McMansions, could give 3 fucks about this plant that you're trying to save. But to me, it takes the whole gang, and I don't think people realize that the interconnectedness of the biosphere is incredibly tight. Yeah. And pieces are falling off all the time, and we don't know which piece will be the one that makes it all collapse.
Yeah.
But if we just keep recklessly just letting shit die, and who gives a shit, and I need a McBurger, so let's knock down another 10,000 acres of rainforest this week, it's going to get us. Yeah. So, and maybe I am a fool. Maybe that is just foolishness, because, the Bible do say that the earth is here for the man to reap its good.
Yeah. Interconnectedness, biodiversity, making fun of Mac. What are you, some kind of communist, environmental, pinko freak?
Yeah, that's pretty
and
much
that's what I'm trying to change. Right. And I'm trying to change.
I don't know how you fight that either, but the children aspect is exactly the way to go, though. Do you want your children to enjoy these same things?
Yeah.
But I'm afraid, how many kids get to go out fishing now? I mean, shit, you're just lucky if they have one parent that'll even pay them any attention anymore.
Yeah, because, strategy-wise, I guess, when you are saying this, like, keywords like interconnectedness, that type of stuff, which, by the way, if I could pronounce, that would help. But, things that,
it's not
to me, philosophically are essential for anybody to get. But, you and I and 10 other people talk about it. We got all excited. It's cool. To 90% of human beings, they're going to be like, shut up. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And when I kind of vaguely get it, it bugs me anyway, so I don't care. And, that argument is fun for preaching to the choir in a way, for, people who are already on that wavelength, not so much for everyone else. And I guess what you're saying is that in order to reach everyone else, which is the only way to make change happen, because, change is not going to happen among just 10% of people, and that really changes things on a larger scale, you have to go a completely different strategy that's less philosophical, less pretty, less appealing to people's greater vision of the universe, and just appealing purely to, do you want this for your kids? And they're like, yeah, they're my kids. I want this for them. Or
even, because then I love talking theory, environmental theory. I love it. And I could drop it and we could talk about it all day. I'd love it.
Hits up!
When you get down to the pragmatics, exactly what you just mentioned, it doesn't matter for your kids. But then you take it even more basic than that, and you get into the environmental justice. And talking about my wetlands, the Colorado Lagoon that had the fecal coliform and the E. coli is making people sick. You take that and you increase that on the scale for the Indias and the Mexicos of the world, and or aspects of Mexicos of the world, and some of these other places where they're bearing the burden of it, and so they are getting impacted the most. So it's environmental issues. A lot of people say, or one of the arguments is that it's a first world problem. Deal with the endangered species. I'm trying to put food on my plate and keep that shelter over my head.
Sure. Right.
When you're dealing with those become way more important. But when you can't drink the water that's coming, not even in your faucet, but in the river or the well that you're pulling out, when you can't breathe the air, those are that's Maslow's first level, right? I'm dealing with all the survival issues, and that's where it becomes super important. You see that, you cannot argue that. You cannot argue
of course. And even on sometimes, because we don't draw the link, but even on a first world level where people in inner cities, kids grow up with an insanely high rate of respiratory illness, or just talk about like the biggest thing that kill people constantly today. Like when you talk about cancer, for example, and every other person, there's somebody somebody who had this form of cancer, killed them, and we just don't know shit about it. It's like, what causes it? Why is it becoming so damn prominent and it shows up in every which way? It's like, we don't really know much.
We got good theories.
Have something to do with some kind of environmental who knows?
We got good guesses.
But that's what I mean. It's like kind of drawing that connection, which seems to be, of course, if you start pumping a ton of poison in your water, your air, your food supply, your everything, the odds are that maybe something bad shows up health-wise. And, look at that. There are some negative strands health-wise that we can't explain. Connection? Maybe. That's the kind of stuff where first world stuff shows up suddenly. And all the people who are, absolute freaks in every other way of their life, but suddenly, their aunt dies of cancer and they become really passionate about, I'm going to donate to the Cancer Society. It's like, well, look at some other connections there. What could be some of the issues that are creating this type of problems?
And that's exactly it. And that is one of the most exciting parts of my, I guess, industry, quote unquote, dealing with this professionally, the professionals that deal with environmental issues like myself. I'm a big white guy. I grew up in a middle class neighborhood and that's that. But what is so cool is that there are groups of people that are going through school. They've lived this experience in inner cities. They lived this experience in maybe not in this country. Or they've had different experiences, and now they're going through school. They're starting to take that intuition. They're starting to take that compassion, that empathy, and they're starting to put it to their professional lives. So one of the coolest things about this industry, environmental industry, is you are starting to see lower income people getting into this industry. You're starting to see minorities get into this industry. The strongest leaders in the environmental movement are women. And it is fascinating to see this. I mean, it's incredible. The restoration projects at Palos Verde Peninsula, Bayona, which is in here in Marina del Rey, Bolsa Chica, these are all run by some of the most powerful people I know. They are self-actualized, they are passionate, but they're not crazy.
Right.
They know how to communicate with you.
Right.
And they're coming from diverse backgrounds.
Yep.
And that, you can't, when you deal with that diversity, it's, you can't, you can't fight it.
And that, I guess, is one of the key things, is figuring out a communication strategy, because in that sense, it's such a everybody's issue. Again, it's not an issue that cater to one particular political philosophy or another, or one particular anything. It's just such a basic human issue that just being able to communicate it as such, making people realize that that's what we're talking about. We're not trying to sell you on some kind of weird ideology where you have to wear tie-dye shirts in order, which, by the way, I love my tie-dye shirts, but, you know what I mean? It's like, there's not this sense that you are trying to convert them to some strange worldview that alters radically who they are. Who the fuck cares who you are? Be whoever you want to be. Just don't, just don't put poison in the water you drink. Simple. That's it.
It's that simple.
And but yeah, in a way, one thing I wanted to ask about politics, but this time actually related to what we are talking about rather than going off on tangents. One of the problems with the political system in the US, and I'm sure we can say probably the same thing about most other places in the world, but in US, with the whole two-party system, people get rightfully bummed out in some cases, because even what you were saying earlier about, Gore, the reality is that a lot of the time you have the differences between people who are driving the bus 90 miles an hour toward destruction and people who are driving the bus 60 miles an hour toward destruction. I mean, I'll take the 60 mile an hour guy any day compared to the 90, but, the end result is not dramatically different. And I mean, that's one of the things that pissed me off about Gore in 2000 is that, of course, once you see what Bush Jr. was and did, is like, Jesus Christ, anything was better than that. But, Gore was a guy who had made a ton of compromises on the very environmental issues that he was supposedly championing. He picked, who the fuck picked Joe Lieberman as his vice presidential candidate? I mean, you deserve to lose right there, you know what I mean? And so I remember back at the time, I was like, fuck these guys, they are just as bad, give me Nader or something. Then, of course, you get stuck with 8 years of George Bush, and you're like, okay, let me rethink that about that, But in any case, point being, one of the things that you hear from a lot of segments is people who are bummed out with Republicans, bummed out with Democrats. And so one of the things you start hearing growing more and more is more of a libertarian take on politics. And on some level, there is something very appealing about that. I mean, when you think about all the insanely stupid laws in which we have the government regulating morality, whether it comes to war on drugs, whether it comes to, a million other issues, libertarian politics do seem extremely appealing on a very self-evident level. One of the possible downfalls of the whole libertarian thing is when this is applied not purely to issues of personal morality, but when it's applied to the common good, specifically environmental issues. Once the libertarian thing of taking away any government role in regulation and anything else, not that the government is doing an amazingly good job at that, far from it, but it's like the solution is having none whatsoever, no regulation whatsoever, and let the industries do what they want. Yeah, good luck with that. I mean,
we've seen the laissez-faire thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, my concern with, because on some level, I very much sympathize with certain libertarian ideas when it comes to personal issues. When it comes to common good issues, I feel a little considerably sketchier about it. I was wondering kind of what's your take on that?
I feel that we've reached a point where we don't have the ability to have that. We're so interconnected. And, go back to that term. Yeah. We are dependent upon China.
Right.
For a lot of our goods. That's how we are. We are dependent upon Mexico. We're dependent upon all these other countries. We are dependent upon the people that we don't even know exist, and that we don't know are going to exist.
Right.
And so we don't have the ability to actually have that thought to where we can't be responsible for things outside of ourselves. So that's where my head is at, and that kind of comes from Robert Wright, Non-Zero. It's a fantastic book. He based his entire book, and he sums, he analyzes human civilization and human evolutionary history, and he does it in the best possible way. He uses game theory, And he shows that if you have a zero-sum game, there's a winner and a loser. And you put those together, you get 0. You don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But when you have a non-zero-sum game, you both win or you both lose. And so he has some great examples in the book, but he goes forward and he says, everything that we do as humans, humanity is described as a non-zero-sum game. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be existing where we are today. Nope. And so he says that we don't have the ability not to think about other people. And that's where we are on the planet. And it's not just other people, it extends to other species, it extends to other homes. So I guess that's my roundabout way of saying, it's beyond our cognitive abilities to think that we can just think about ourselves.
No, and I mean, philosophically, yeah. You're absolutely right. And the point then becomes just figuring out the communication strategy so that people see the benefit to them rather than just appealing to their good heart. Because otherwise, you hear lots of crickets lots of the time when you do that. So instead, trying to, appeal to people's self-interest, and I completely agree with you there. I guess when it comes to political issues, it's tricky because, this happens to me in just about every other discussion that whenever people are arguing, I usually see the good side of what they're saying. And at the same time, I see yeah, but you're a fucking idiot because you're taking it so far that you're missing the point. And so when it comes to politics, I don't like Republicans. I don't like Democrats. There are issues that I have with libertarians. And even do I like the idea of big state or big government? No, definitely not. At the same time, the people that I should sympathize with would take a more anarchist approach to things or a very strong libertarian one. To me, they are also missing the point. Because precisely because I don't like government, at the same time, I do see some occasions in which you fucking need it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which doesn't, and people, typical dualistic mentality is, if you do think that you need it here, that means you're a pro-big government bastard and you just want the cult of the state and you're a slave. It's like, no, you stupid motherfucker. It's balance between things, and you need to figure out where the balance is. Yeah. And it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And I think people like so much simple slogans, it's like all one way or all another way, or government, all absolutely always bad, all absolutely always. It's like people tend to have a hard time with the subtlety of it all.
Yeah.
And this is a game that's done all by subtlety, because you're not going to convince people to go completely one route, abandoning everything they ever believed in terms of how they consume, the kind of standards of living they want to live by. You're not going to convince people of the exact opposite. It's just not going to happen that way. And so to me,
I wouldn't want to almost.
Right.
I want that dialogue.
Right.
I want that, that dialectic that's just going to go forward, and you're going to figure something out of it. And you're going to be able to get that, again, going to diversity. You want that diversity of thought, because there's no way to progress. There's no way to have that creativity to go forward unless you get that chaos that comes from a good argument.
I thought, to me, diversity of thought, all the many, many, many voices in my head is more than enough diversity. So any other opinion needs to be squashed. But yes, no, other than that, I completely agree with you, right?
So the problems are massive, but what are some tiny small steps? I mean, back when I lived in Nashville and we were working with the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts, we would do simple things like painting storm drains that this dumps to the Cumberland River. And I know you talked about people way far away from the ocean don't really realize that that's where it ends up. But what are small things people can do to get involved and just help out a tiny bit at a time?
Yeah, there's a million websites that can tell you what to do, in your community, tell you what to do in general. Where I come from is just the basic philosophy: just give a shit, just care about something outside of yourself. And if that takes you down the path of picking up trash in your neighborhood, that's the path it takes you on. If it means that you're gonna come down to one of our restoration sites and go plant plants in the ground and dedicate your life to saving environmental or endangered species, like myself, my business partner, and all the crazy environmental scientists that work for me, we've changed our lives for that reason. So just give a shit.
Is that available? Could people volunteer to come out and help and maybe get a taste of it? Because I could imagine once you start down this path, it's something that just infects you. And
yeah, it does. So one of the ways that I built my company is I don't take jobs. I haven't yet, and I don't want to. You never know where the world takes you, but I won't take a job by a developer. I don't work in that realm. What I do is I build projects. I build programs. And so our company, all the people that work for me, these incredibly empowered people, we build programs so that our restoration sites end up successful, not because we hired some group of people to come and put plants in the ground, because we hired a bunch of scientists to tell us, okay, here's what you got now, and then they leave. We build programs so that the community comes out and does this work. We made commitments to our stakeholders, and we said, no, you know what? I'm not going to have some consulting group come in and put plants in. I'm going to make sure every single one of the thousands of plants that go into my restoration site are done by a Cub Scout. They're done by a Boy Scout. They're done by a community group, a church group. I don't care. Somebody from the neighborhood. I want them out there working, because then they're going to get that experience that I got. Who knows where that takes them? Maybe they forget about it after they leave. Maybe they don't. They're going to put that plant in the ground. They're going to get an experience out of that.
And the most direct benefit, because they're there.
And the most direct benefit. And then they're going to go home, and most of them are going to actually like it. And then they're going to talk about it. And then when they see that our project is successful in a couple years, and then they start to see it grow, they're going to get that pride. And they're going to have that ownership. That's the only way that I see our projects are going to be sustainable, is if our community does it. And so we made that commitment. So yeah, we have those. My two big projects, Los Cerritos Wetlands and the Colorado Lagoon, we built projects for those. You can go out onto our websites and see all the dates that we have. We do, I think, like 10 public events every month for each site.
Nice.
So we have tons of opportunities. I work with all the local schools, give them opportunities to go out. So, yeah.
Are you familiar with the fight they had in Malibu? All I remember is there was 1,000 people in the PCH one day, kind of down where Malibu Colony is, and they were trying to protect brown baby ducks. And then the next thing I know, 3 days later, there were 10,000 bulldozers there. I guess.
Malibu Lagoon.
Yes.
Yeah, Malibu Lagoon.
What was that?
Same thing I'm doing.
Is it?
Same thing I'm doing. It's a restoration. It's a restoration of a wetland habitat. We kind of talked about it. The wetlands here in Southern California are they're one of 12 of the most unique habitats on the planet.
Is that because we have mountains going straight into the ocean here?
That's one of the reasons, yeah.
Because we don't have like mangroves or any sort of gentle slope into the coast.
But about that one, if you guys have paid attention to previous episodes, freaking ducks rape each other on a regular basis. So
if you've ever seen it, it's horrible.
So bring in the bulldozer, bulldoze those bastards.
Only the male ducks.
Yeah.
No, if you've...
I was more concerned with his new plant friend.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm sorry.
No, but don't ever watch ducks have sex. It's horrible. It'll make you cry. But yeah, that's what that project is. It's wetlands restoration, and it's to build habitat for animals and plants. And that's what that project was for. There's some controversy behind that, because there's different people that... And actually, the controversy is between the sides, the good sides. They're the good teams on both sides. They want the restoration, but in different ways. And I hate that. I hate the infighting. I hate the environmentalists eating their young. I hate the lack of ability to adapt. That's what drives me crazy about this industry, quote unquote. But that's one of the issues with Malibu Lagoon, is that it's a wetland restoration. And yeah, that's what was going on. Same thing I'm doing. I'm building wetlands, and we're saving not just for the ducks, but for
fuck the ducks.
But it just makes sense why I could never figure out what the angle was, because it's like they both seem to want.
Yep.
And then when the bulldozer showed up, I felt like Donald Trump had won.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
You know, by the way, that after he said the whole thing about now seeing ducks have sex, right now the number of Google searches for duck porn has just spiked tremendously among our listeners.
This is getting a little weird, but duck penises.
I'm missing out.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, Google that.
I just bought the URL. So
duck penises. That's
Oh man,
Yeah, I'm speechless.
there you go, man. It's
This Duncan moment brought to you by Monsanto.
Oh, speaking of which, sorry, totally on a tangent, but a million thanks to somebody who just bought through my Amazon link some of the most bizarre sex toys I've ever seen. Again, I don't get to see names of who buys what, but I get to see what is being bought, and somebody got some really bizarre...
Did they get them for you?
No, sadly
Okay.
not. Well, actually not so sadly, not my thing, but it was, I think... Yeah, that was interesting. In any case.
The Daffy Duck Cock dildo.
Yeah, that was just one step away from that, but it's fascinating stuff.
Oh
but
man, yeah.
to take you away on a different direction, where we met the first time originally was inside a boxing gym.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the typical thing that all environmentalists do in their free time is punch people in the face, right?
There you go.
So, yeah, explain a little bit. Fighting, connection with who you are. How does that play?
Oh man, yeah, that's I don't know. I have loved boxing since I was a kid. My dad loved boxing. We grew up in a Latino neighborhood, and we watched was we watched the Lakers, and then we watched soccer and boxing. And I remember all the women in the kitchen patting the tortillas and making the carne asada, and all the guys in the living room watching Hector Macho Camacho come out with all this frilly stuff. And I've loved it ever since I was a kid. And last year the DG Pine Avenue gym opened up in Long Beach, and they had a special, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it out. And it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. The biggest changes for me personally, from my perspective on what I'm doing, and just giving me that confidence to go forward.
Yeah, in which way? Because, I mean, there are plenty of people who are listening right now who are big into MMA and fighting, so they get it. You know, there's no need to explain.
Yeah.
At the same time, there are a bunch of people who are not into that kind of thing.
Oh, everyone I hang out with.
Only listening because of my lovable, sexy accent, and they may not be into the fighting and brutality and blood.
No, I'm dying to know, because that's me. What was that first day like? Did they just beat the shit out of you to introduce you to, or were they actually gentle with you?
Well, so I went for the workout. That's what I wasn't intending to fight, actually.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to, get that. Well, because just knowing boxing, knowing the sport, I know that the some of the best athletes in the world are fighters, and so I wanted to get in shape. Because I was working myself to death. I mean, we've got big projects. I was stressing out. I mean, it sounds great to work with kids and to work with endangered species and get to work outside, and it is great, but it's huge. And so I was stressing myself out, and I had no extracurricular life at all. I was all work, and I'm still in that way a lot. But I just went out, and I wanted to work out. And then they asked me, you want to get in the ring? And I was like, I kind of do. And I don't have the body type for boxing at all. I'm tall and lanky.
Outside boxing.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
So I got in the ring, and it is an incredible experience, and it's amazing. So
how does that translate to life? Beside the high and endorphins and the fun of the working out and the getting you in shape, all good stuff. But what's the connection between what you do in the gym and the rest of your life?
Yeah, that's a trip. I'm starting to see it now. Mm-hmm. After I've been doing it for about 10 months now, mm-hmm. and I'm starting to see the connection now. One of the ways, we actually had a huge scare, right before Christmas. All of our wetlands almost died. We have about 200 acres that just died. Mm-hmm. The reason why was because of some governmental agencies were going to cut off our water that is necessary for a wetland. Right. And it was just it's
I'm not even a specialist, but yes, I can see how water
exactly water wetlands, right? Yep. And it's not even worth going into how and why, but basically it's we think we fixed it now, and we fixed the issues. But when we had that first meeting, I found myself and we were outside working, and I found myself getting in my boxing stance. And I wasn't going to fight the guy. I was never going to do that. But what happened was that was a physical reaction to the mental reaction that I was going through. I now realize that if I don't fix this problem right now, my wetlands die. And so I had the mindset that I use when I'm in the gym, or even just thinking about being in the gym. And it was like, I have to fight this, and I have to be smart about it, and I have to get pumped up, and I have to get that energy going, and I have to win.
Right.
And so that was one of the changes I saw. The confidence was the most important, though. You get, there's weird things that go through your brain, and it changes the way you look at the world.
Yep, big time. And I mean, in that regard, when you're talking about environmental issues in your job specifically and on a larger scale, you are talking about a battle, essentially.
Yeah.
It's a battle between forces of destruction, forces of creation, and it really boils down to a contest in a way. And so developing that toughness, that resilience, that ability to take the punch and staying with it, you know, because that's, to me, and I mean, I'm going to go off on that kind of stuff in other occasions to death, but to me, that's like the biggest thing out of combat sports. Is not so much the flamboyant technique that you'll develop, is not so much all the other stuff, is learning how to take a beating and stay in it, you know, because that's what's most applicable to life. You know what I mean? It's like you are in a battle that you're not going to win because you decide, I think it's a good idea to go this environmental route. Now everybody's going to listen to me and it all works out and we ride off into the sunset and everybody's happy.
Yeah, it was easy.
That's the thought process I had going into it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, doesn't exactly work that way.
No, it doesn't.
And it's like for each quarter of an inch you move forward, you have forces that are trying to push you 10 feet back.
Yep.
So in that sense, learning how to fight is not, I mean, the physical is fun, is great, is all of that, but it really just train your mind to deal with adversity in life.
And this happened last week. I sparred. I was in the ring, and I'm sitting on a broken rib right now, and my wrist is hurting real bad because I got my ass handed to me.
Right.
Worse than I'd ever had since I started. It was from a friend, which was a weird concept. That was a weird thing getting started. When you have to punch a friend in the face, that was a weird idea for me to get over.
I have no such problems.
And it probably ended pretty quickly when that first good clack came in, right? Did that flip the switch, or?
No, I still have a really hard time with it. It's one of the harder things that I have with fighting is actually in the fight that I was in last week, I got off a really good punch, and it was probably one of my best punches. And instead of having that killer instinct come out, I went, "Oh, are you all right?" And that's not what you need in boxing. But yeah, he kicked my ass. Oh man, and I never have experienced this before in my life. And I've done some crazy shit. I would stop, on boats or just crazy stuff. I've never experienced this before. I was so overwhelmed because he was so much better than me. I didn't know what to do.
Yep.
And that flight or fight thing kicked in. I don't know what it was. I knew I had to punch him, and I knew I had to block, and I know I couldn't do it. And he was schooling me.
Right.
And it was you get into that red zone where you're just, your tachometer's just flying and you can't think, I learned that that's where I need to play in that realm a little bit better more because it was frightening.
I mean, nobody's comfortable there, right? And that's why nobody does it, and that's why nobody learns anything about it.
But it was one of the best things that happened.
Yeah, absolutely, because it feels like hell.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
You swear to yourself that you'll never put yourself in that place again.
Yeah.
But in a way, as horrible as it is the thing that you can get the learned most from. Because if you keep doing something you're already good at, in that sense, it's like big deal, you're never out of your comfort zone, which is great for 90% of life. But what about the times that life, whether you like it or not, pushes you out of your comfort zone?
And that's kind of like your book, being that warrior, having that being that warrior in the ring, and that ethic that transcends to the rest of the things in your life. And so you're going to be the best human that you can be because you are more of a warrior now.
Big time. And there's when I wrote on the Warrior's Path, originally the very, very first edition, which was in Italian, had only 8 chapters, and then I wrote 3 more for the first American edition in 2003, and then I added 2 more, so now it's 13 in the last one. But the very first edition, the last chapter, so right now it would be chapter 8, was called The Warrior as Bodhisattva. And it was this whole idea of taking, first 7 chapters we've looked at the beauty and the philosophy of martial arts in a million other ways, and that's great and all. Chapter 8 was the so what moment. It's like, yeah, great. Martial art make you feel good about this, develop this talent, develop self-confidence, does this and that. That's nice and all. What for? What is the point of it all? And in that sense is where I was tying fighting to what you're talking right now, which is about thinking on a bigger scale. And, all the battles you do in the ring are mere preparation for the bigger things, the real deep issues, the stuff that for which people are living and dying today, stuff like environmental issues, stuff like affecting the quality of life on Earth, reducing pain and suffering for as many human beings as you can, bringing as much joy and insight to as many human beings as you can.
Being an amazing human. I mean, entropy is the state of the universe. Equilibrium, death. I mean, when you look at the universe, it's darkness. And when you have the ability to express yourself as a human, all you're doing is you're carrying on everything else that the earth has been doing. It's just expressing itself. Life as an expression is so hard to express. To be a species is so challenging. But then when you can then take yourself and express yourself, whether it's through, art, whether it's through taking care of your community, whether it's through fighting, you're expressing yourself and your being, and that is just a challenge.
That's very Bruce Lee of you.
Exactly.
To honestly express yourself.
There you go, man. That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Speaking of, go ahead.
I was just going to say, unbelievably, we've kind of reached the edge of our time limit.
Went way too quickly.
Unbelievably. This is 2 interviews in a row that could just go on for another 3 hours without any problem.
I'm honored.
Absolutely. No, thanks so much, Taylor. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we could play with it because these are such fun key issues, and I love the way you present them. That, again, is not like a dogmatic approach either direction. It's very... very real, very about how making things happen in the real world as opposed to some purely philosophical statement of how things should be, which is doesn't really help anybody.
Thank you.
If folks want to learn more or get in contact, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my company's website is that's my company, is Tidal Influence. I deal with the tides, and everything influenced by the tides. So
be like water, my friend.
There you go, right? TidalInfluence.com is my company and everything that we do. My projects, ColoradoLagoon.org and Into Los Cerritos Wetlands.org. Those are our biggest ones. But yeah, and I'll have links to all the sites on my website too.
Yeah, and if you didn't catch them, we're gonna put the websites in the episode notes. So
cool.
If you check on the webpage for the Drunken Taoist, you'll see for episode 11, we'll make sure to include this site so you have a direct link.
Terrific. Yeah.
That's how it ends, guys. Thank you so much.
Man. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for giving me the platform to speak about, stuff I love and that I feel is, important.
And so ends another awesome episode of the Drunken Taoist podcast. Be sure to keep your ears peeled for another mind-expanding episode coming soon. We'll be tweeting you as soon as they come out. You can keep track of Daniel at D-Bolelli. That's D-B-O-L-E-L-L-I. Find me on Twitter at Richimon1. That's R-I-C-H-I-M-O-N, the numeral 1. See y'all soon.